Welcome to Make It Monday. I'm Lisa Johnson, and I'm going to show you how to use the masking technique with your die cut negatives. Starting out today with my Turning a New Leaf die cuts, and I'll be using this large one in the set. Look at that gorgeous leaf shape, beautiful curves. And I like to keep my die cuts in these CD cases because it just seems a lot easier to work with. Okay, so I went ahead and used a 1/4 sheet of regular printer paper, lined up where I wanted it to be, die cut it, have it ready to go for showing you today. Like I said, simple printer weight. Now I use repositional glue stick to adhere this to my cardstock. See, repositional? Okay, so now I'm just going to get a piece of scratch paper, turn my sheet over, and those little areas that are really delicate, I'm going to make sure I get those covered really well, because when I'm sponging my area, those tend to want to lift up. Okay, across the top and the bottom. Now I'm going to go ahead and line it up with my cardstock sheet. This is a simple 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inches, and start my sponging technique. I use a synthetic sponge, and I just cut it in half for the purpose of being able to get a daintier use. And I just want to make sure it's dry, and I want to rub in a little bit. There we go. You can see I have a lot more on my scratch paper than I do actually on my project, because I don't want that super dark. I just want the faded portion of it to show up. I really like to work it gently. I don't want that stippled look for this particular project. You can see that nice circular motion gives a nice blend. There we go. What's nice about this repositional, either tape if you want to use that, or spray, or whatever you want to use, is that you can actually use these more than one time, these masks that you're creating here. So you can do a group of cards. A little bit more sponging here. I'll go back over some of the areas and sponge in a little darker on the bottom portions of the leaves to kind of give it a little bit of more added dimension. Alright, so the next step I'm going to get ready for is I will be using Textile 2 as an overlay for the sponged area. So I'll get that stamp out in just a second as soon as I get this done. The ink I'm using is New Leaf, and I'm using it on Simply Chartreuse cardstock. And then I'll take my dark chocolate, stamp my Textile word strip. I like to line up the largest area first, give it a nice straight line, and then go back and start from the bottom, moving towards the top. For some reason, it just is a system that works for me. There we go. I really like the softness that this particular technique adds to your projects, and I think when I show you and reveal the finished layer, you'll see what I'm talking about. Okay, let's show you here now. I'm going to go ahead and start peeling this back now. Voila, here we go. Being really careful not to rip it, because I actually want to use it again for more cards. Look at that. Isn't that beautiful? Soft airbrushed effect. I'm going to go ahead and trim one leaf with my craft knife. And I like to turn the paper a little bit midway as I take that curve. Gives me a little bit more control, helping me guide my craft knife with more pressure towards me. I love this craft knife. It works so well. This is a trick I learned from Nicole, to use this particular knife. Okay, see how that lifts up? Perfect. I went ahead and used edgers for die cutting the tops and bottom of this particular layer. Now I like to use tape to secure my edger to my actual layer. That part that I'm taping is actually going to be cut off anyway, so it works out really great. Line up, little tape. And I don't like to run it all the way through, I just barely run it in and back of my die cut machine. A happy crunchy sound there. There we go. I have such limited workspace, so for me, that just makes a huge difference. That little tapping is something that I do to kind of loosen up my dies sometimes. If I can't pull that edge out by myself, I just tap it a little. Okay. This next one here. I'll tell you, tape is one of those magic tools that is just right there hanging out in your office anyway, so might as well use it. There we go, and here is our finished die cut layer, ready for some additional steps in just a second here. Alright, the next step is going to be adding some sponging around the edges of this layer. Again, take off the excess, and I like to start in those creases first because the darkest amount of ink will get into those deeper areas. Instead of the darkest being on the highlighted area, we're putting them in the sunken area. It's always interesting to watch other people use this technique. Okay, now I'm getting ready to sew, so it's a little awkward for me to sew with something already having a decorative edge, so I'm going to actually score a light line for me to follow on my sewing machine. Gives me something to look at and hold true to my line too. Okay. See, I'm following my line. I don't have to use any other guides, just whip it right out. Please don't ask me any questions about sewing machines. Totally not my thing. This is about the extent of my sewing skills right here. And I'm actually pretty happy I'm able to do this at this point. Alright, now I have these loose tails, and I've always been, like I said, lover of tape, so I'm just going to tape these down, make sure they line up with the stitches that are already there. And then I'll end up trimming them off with some scissors, just so that they don't have any possibility of slipping out the sides when I adhere my layer to my cardstock. I went ahead and pre-stamped my cardstock base with the text background, and I stamped that in New Leaf to kind of tie in the colors. There we go. Okay. I went ahead and used the Fillable Frames Editions stamp set, and I used the Fillable Frames number 4 die cut to make this frame image, and I'm going to just sponge it to add some cohesiveness to the project, and then around the edges of the card. Get going pretty fast on this because I don't want it to be heavy. I want it to be quick and light, quick and light. I think I would probably die if you took my sponge away. Okay, so I just thread my button. This is one of my final steps here. I have a little trick on how I adhere buttons to cards. This is something I've started doing lately, so I wanted to show that to you as well. If I don't have to get a needle out, I usually don't. So instead of tying on the back, I'm going to go ahead and cross it over like this. And then I'll use some score tape. I'm going to use an extra long piece for this, because I'm going to actually double it over, and I'll show you how to do that. Cross the crossed area there, and I'm going to peel off that tape and flip the adhesive that's left over coming over the side back over to secure, making sure both sides are secure. Then I'll take my scissors and clip off the excess. I don't get a lumpy button then, and I actually can still not have to worry about sewing anything on. Just like that. Little foam squares to go ahead and mount this frame onto my card. I'm going to go ahead and lift that leaf that I've cut out. Give it a little bit of extra dimension for doing that. And there you go. We have a great thinking of you card for that somebody who's been doing something special for you or that you just had a great thought for. So thank you for joining me for Make It Monday.